Ooh, proposal. I can talk about this now. Yes. I have been asked to not talk about this for so long. It's so nice to see this. Oh, I have a very clickbaity video to film. Next.js is changing, boys, and React has never been better. Get excited. Everything's about to change in JavaScript land. React just got a hell of a lot smarter. Well, you talked about this on Code in Life and I missed it? Oh, well. Why does nobody tell me when I can finally talk about the things I know about? Wait, I can put this if I talk now. Yes, this changes everything. I have such a busy day ahead of me. God, hit that marker button. Definitely going to make some content out of this. Turns out Tanner Lindsley was right. I know, crazy. The most essential package for React Query, is something that a lot of us need, because it turns out when we're building applications that are interactive, that those applications have interactions, and interactions are not synchronous. Finally, React has acknowledged that async is an important part of developing applications on the web, and everywhere else too. Now, we have a use hook. Use unwraps the value from a promise, and allows you to call it wherever. The benefit here is by being inside of React itself, we can use things inside of React itself, like suspense boundaries, and we can have a tree of components that are all calling data, and that tree of components all needs to resolve promises. Now we can suspend at the top, resolve all of the promises underneath, and have no more pop-in. The pop-in is gone. It's over. We did it. No more pop-in, no more chaos, just a bunch of use. Let's talk about how this actually changes shit. So, what we're here to discuss is all of the things that are different because of the changes that React has made here. There's a couple key aspects I really want to hone in on. So the first of the things I want to hone in on is that React is now server first. So when you write a React component, the default behavior is server, and all of your React code is assumed to be run on a server unless you choose for it to not. That was not the case with React before. React was assumed to be run on client with some exceptions on server, but now a lot of your code, your logic, and what you're doing is going to be run entirely on the server. Thing two is that getting data into your components is fundamentally different. So this is the actual thing that changed by having the ability to async await on server or call the use hook on client. So all of the things that you had to do for that, specifically things like React Query, now exist fundamentally differently than they did before. I had a third thing. That's cool. So React is now server first. Getting data into components is fundamentally different, and the ecosystem will have to change because of how much we rely on tools like React Query and frameworks like Remix and Next. There are a lot of things that are different now, and the maintainers of these solutions, I know a handful were clued in and have been working on it, but a handful weren't. And this is very different. Technically, the way we all did stuff before will work still, but to take advantage of these new wins, a lot of us are going to have to change the way we wrote our solutions. So React is server first, which means that our code runs on servers by default. Getting data into our components is entirely different, and the ecosystem around all of these things will now have to shift. Let's take a look at some of the problems that I had with React before. So here's a fun one. Interfacing with promises is annoying. For anybody who's done this without React Query, having an effect that calls the promise on the right conditions, sets the data to a state at the right time, and then processing accordingly is very annoying. Having the use keyword that you can directly call, and it just gives you the thing, and the component doesn't render until then, solved. Huge. Loading conditions and pop-in hell. So for those who haven't seen this before, on many pages, it loads a shell, or just a blank white page. The React code runs, fetches some data, renders some components. Those components need data. Those components go fetch it. They have loading spinners. They load their data. Those components also have to fetch more. That also needs to get more data. And that's how you end up in loading spinner hell. I'm just going to call this loading spinner. Loading spinner hell is solved because you don't have conditions in your components anymore around loading states. Those are all suspended on higher levels. So if you have a component tree where everything is suspended at the top and each layer is fetching data asynchronously using the new use keyword, you can do that in one pass and render one thing. The results is incredible. Loading spinner hell resolved. Type safety with data. Because getting data in your components is annoying, type safety with data has been annoying for a lot of reasons, often because there are layers between where the data comes from and where the data is needed. Like I have a server fetch I have to do to get this data to my component. A common example, I'll do create T3 app actually. What we want is here. Let's do a pretty common example. Let's say I have an API endpoint. So in this simple example, I have this get data, which is fetching data from /API/examples, then JSONing it. And I have to have this any here because I have no idea what this is when it comes back. And I should be able to npm run dev. Invalid. Oh, I have to npx prisma db seed. Cool. There we go. And there's something in the db because we don't have any examples in there yet. But that's all doing what it's supposed to. But we don't know what the type of this data is. And I'm just arbitrarily putting that there. We have all these any's. In order to get the types, we'd have to define them here, export the type, import the type, bind it there, or in the function here. Chaos. What if, crazy, here's the old method compared to the new method. So the way we would do this before is we would have an external examples.ts that takes a request, gets whatever we need to get, returns with a status 200, and JSONs whatever was here. Pretty traditional. And then we would define a function that lets us fetch from that endpoint, and then it lets us translate that JSON back to a JavaScript object, which we can use. And then we would call this inside of an effect, set that to our state. Now we have the data, but until then we don't, so we have a loading condition that we have to return and handle accordingly until then. This is the React code we all know and love. We've been writing this for a while. There have been a lot of ergonomic improvements through third-party libraries, things like React Query letting us compress all of this into one thing where we just hand it the promise. I'll even write that. So we could have replaced all of this with this and also had better loading conditions, error conditions, stuff like that. It helps a lot, but it doesn't keep us from defining the endpoint on the server, making this promise, and still doesn't give us the type definitions for that. So we are simplifying this. On the other end, we have stuff like TRPC where we write the function on the back end, and then when we call it, the type's inferred correctly, so we don't have to do the res.status stuff. We don't have to do any of that. We can literally just, in the TRPC router, go here, example router, we can context.prisma.example.findMany here, and this will do the right thing because this is a promise. This has a type, and then when we call this on the client, it'll have the right type for that. Great. But what if I could just call the data in the component? This is the magic of the changes that React proposed today. This is what is so absurdly different. No more separation of concerns at all. If you have a component that is async, now this is a server component, which means you can do server things on it. So I await prisma.example.findMany, and now I have data here, and I know exactly what it is. And I don't even have to check for that anymore because it's going to return. If it failed, it's going to catch elsewhere. Magic. Incredible. Looks like PHP. Yeah, this learned a lot from PHP. The thing about PHP is it stops caring once you cross the line. Slight spoiler for my talk, I guess. What's another tab? Here's a diagram from my talk. On one side, there's a database. On the other side, there's a user. Create React app only cares from HTML to user. PHP only cares from database to HTML. Next cares from database to user. How do you express the loading state? There is no loading state to express. It blocks until the data's there. The loading state is a side effect of bad architecture. The fact that we need a loading state is the problem here. The way this would load is if we call new methods, so const home equals, return new method. So if we're calling this way, right now it's going to be mad because it's a promise, whatever. They're going to fix that. But in order to call this, it would have to be wrapped with a suspense. And once you wrap this with a suspense, whatever your fallback here is what is going to render. Somebody asked about Astro. Yes, Astro does nothing on client side. Astro's islands aren't Astro's islands. It's Astro's architecture for including another library like React. You could make this just React and say React or Preact your problem. And this is accurate, but that's your problem. The only one of these solutions that cares about the server and the client is Next.js. Well, I hope this specifically highlights how much better things are going to be. Instead of orchestrating 4 to 5 pieces to get your data in your components, you can just call it. This changes everything, and I'm so excited for it. The future of Next and the future of React has never been brighter, and I am genuinely really excited for all the cool things coming out soon. If you like this, please subscribe, please like the video, make sure you check out other ones in the future. I'll be speaking at NextConf very soon, based on when this video comes out. I'm guessing you'll be seeing it before then, so make sure you check that out on October 25th. I am very excited for the announcements coming. And please, share this video with some friends. Really proud of what we're doing here. I love this channel, I love the community, and it's exciting to see people realizing that YouTube is a place we can have these deeper, more technical conversations. This isn't just for noobs, this is for anyone who cares about software dev and progressing the work that they're doing. So seriously, subscribe if you haven't, like the video, join our Discord so we can chat more about this stuff, and come hang out at NextConf. It's going to be a really fun event. Yes!